Hello, YouTube. It is time for part 4 of our VTubing low poly model tutorial series. Today we are going to be doing rigging and weight painting. So we have our model. I have textured the rest of her off stream. Though if you're watching on YouTube, you have seen the time lapse of that. I added that after. And if it looked like at one point I had to redo some of the texturing on stream because off stream in a time lapse because I forgot to hit save on my texture images, ignore that. Actually, no, don't ignore it. Take it as a lesson. Save your work. Save your images as you're making your textures. Make sure that when you're texturing, in this texture window, that you go to your image tab right here in the top left and go save. And save your images as you paint them so that you don't have to repaint them an hour later because your cache cleared from Blender. Don't be like me. Also, make sure you're saving up new versions. You'll see here we have in the top, actually you can't see because of the way that it's capturing. It is, I've been saving up new versions at the end of every stream. You might even want to save new versions as you're going. If you're trying something new that you don't know exactly what it is, version up and like save it, like, you know, for here it's like Hilda like V4 for rigging. I usually write like the version number, that's the V, and then for rigging, I kind of like write just a little reminder text of like what part of the process I am of any one of these. That way, if I'm like, oh, you know what? You have 7 different Euro files. Yeah, I think the Momo model is like version 14, and for the Friday model is like version 21 at this point. So don't be afraid. Like, Blender files are not that big. You will not fill up your computer by doing that. And if you do, buy an external. It's worth it to have the backups. Okay, so now we have all of our objects. And actually, let me go ahead and make sure I write hair, because we want all of these labeled. We have got our arms, our body, our eye, our eyebrows, our head, our hair, our head, our shoes, which is the legs. Okay, so now what we're going to do is it is time. This is a big one, okay? It is time to apply our mirror modifiers. This is big and important because there's kind of no going back from this. I mean, you can, but it's a pain. So make sure your model is how you want it. The textures are looking good. This is a big point of no return. This is the video game giving you a save point and a full HP MP restore point. Make sure you have a clean save. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and make a second save right now just to have, and just like be like Hilda V5 or V4, because I'll name the other one V5. Clean, or I'll just name it before mirror. And then before I even do another one, I'm gonna save again a third version to have Hilda V5 after mirror application. Before I even apply the mirror, I'm going to save the version. Before mirror, so I'm saving 2 versions. I'm saving one before mirror and one after mirror. That's because this, like, we're going to start applying our mirror modifiers right here as we merge our meshes together when we do our rigging, and that is going to make everything like if you need to fix textures, if you need to fix your mesh in any way, it's going to be a lot harder to do. You'll just have to do everything twice after the mirror application, because like up until this point, we've been able to like edit one side of the model and have it affect both sides. That will no longer be true after this. So, but you want to do this before you do before you do your rigging and weight painting. You can do it after, but it starts to get pretty fussy. I would highly recommend, I think this is, as long as you have even symmetrical texture paints and stuff for your characters, this is the point. After UV unwrapping and texture painting, this is when I like to apply my mirror modifiers, but before rigging. So make sure you've saved some versions, and now we are going to select all of the things we want to merge together. Because right now you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different meshes in the top right here. And specifically, all the ones around the face, we want to be a single mesh. It's just helpful for like when you're doing the shape keys and blend shapes, like we're going to be doing in the future. But we're not going to bring in the hair, because honestly, there's no, like, you don't need to worry too much about having you used to need everything to be a single mesh for it to work in like VTubing software. That's no longer the case. For like VR chat avatars and stuff, you don't need everything to be a single mesh, but it often helps. So we're gonna simplify some things. At least the face we're gonna bring in together. So let me go ahead and turn off, basically, so we'll keep the arms separate, we'll keep the body separate, and we'll keep the legs separate. Right now I have them called shoes. And we'll keep the hair separate. But all of this, because we've got the eyes, the eyebrows, the head, the teeth, and the tongue are all they're all separate meshes, and there's no real reason for them to be separate at this point. So we're going to select everything but the head, or select the head last using shift click, just shift clicking everything. And then we're going to hit Control J. This might break our materials. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so what I forgot to do there is actually apply the mirror modifier like I mentioned. So going into each object, I'm going to select everything. And first I'm going to hit Control A and apply all transforms. And see, you can see this actually wasn't perfectly mirrored, which that's weird. Hold on. Is it not perfectly on the x-axis? That's a bummer. Okay. Okay, so selecting everything, we are going to, first we're going to apply the modifiers. So let's hit apply the mirror modifier. We're going to, the eyes don't have a mirror modifier on them. The teeth do, so we'll apply that. And the thing is, this is actually what broke everything before. You need every mesh to have the same modifiers applied. So like the fact that the eyes didn't have the mirror modifier applied is why suddenly that texture flipped when I joined the meshes together. And so you either need them all to have a mirror modifier or for none of them to have a mirror modifier on when you're joining things. So I'm selecting all of these and making sure that the head is selected last, because that's the last thing I want in. And now we're going to hit Control J to join them all into a single mesh. And now you can see, now when we go into edit mode, they're all available as options. And now you'll also see, if I adjust, because of the way that we applied the mirror modifier, if I adjust this part of the cheek, it doesn't flip it, doesn't mirror it perfectly. What you can do is select this mirror toggle up here, and as long as everything is perfectly mirrored along the x-axis, it will still mirror it. So you can kind of like still edit both sides of the mesh as long as the mesh is perfectly symmetrical. As long as you toggle this kind of like butterfly mirror up here. So if you want to make small minor adjustments, that's the way to do that. But I would really recommend keeping them fairly minor. Oh yeah, it's time to bully me, Tucker, 100%. It's my affiliate anniversary. What better time to bully? I didn't even know it was my affiliate anniversary. They should send you like an email the week before, so you have time to prepare. It's my stream anniversary from like 4 or 5 years ago when I first tried. It's not even like from when I was like streaming as Friday, so it's a little silly. I'll try and do like an actual stream anniversary when it's closer to like the real Friday date. I get 2 birthdays. I'm a special boy, and mom said I could have 2 birthdays. Okay, so now we've got arms, body, hair, head, and shoes. Great. I think that's a good amount to work on a single armature. So now we're going to add a rig to the model. This is how we're going to make it... Is the harp thing? I didn't see it as a harp thing. So now to add a rig onto the model, we make sure we've got the 3D cursor at the world origin. And as a reminder, if you don't have that, you can hit Shift S and choose cursor to world origin. That'll just recenter the 3D cursor for you. And now we're going to hit Shift A and armature. And if you have different plugins installed, you might see different things. Like you'll see the VRM humanoid here. That's because I have the VRM Blender add-on installed. You don't need that. Or you'll see Rigify meta rigs with like human or animal or basic. I actually don't like to use those. I like to start with a single bone. It all begins with a single bone right up the hips. So this is what a bone looks like by default. This is what you should see. Is me as a big old wiener and a bone. A wiener in his dream. And now, if you go to the bone properties tab over here to the right. Ooh, I'm covering it up. Let's hide that. Shrink it on down. Okay, so this bone properties tab that just looks like a bone. Yeah, honestly, Rigify gives you a bunch of bones that you don't need. And it gives you a bunch of like face bones and stuff. And it looks crazy. You don't need it. Start with a single bone. It's simpler and will give you more control this way. So now you'll see if we raise this bone, it like hides behind the body. And that's really annoying because you're like, well, I need to see where the bone is. So we're going to go down to the bone properties tab. It's not on the bone tab. This is something I always mess up. It's on the tab just above it, the data tab. And on the data tab, you'll see viewport display. And then we want to select in front. And if you feel like this is too big of a, if you feel like the octahedral view is like a little overwhelming and bulky, and it's getting in the way of your rig, the other one I would recommend is using a stick. And with the stick, you can see just like the smaller kind of like head at the bottom and like this little point at the top. We're going to use octahedral for like easy view. And you can see the important, let's talk about the anatomy of a bone. So first you have the head of the bone that's here by the bulky end. And that's going to be like the origin point of the bone. That's where the bone is going to rotate from when you're rotating it for animation. Then this is near the narrow point. That's what we call the tail. The tail of the bone is then where other bones will grow out of. And any bone that is grown out of the tail will be parented to the bone above. I'll explain what that means as we go. But the important thing that you need to know, Rigify. So Rigify is actually, yeah, here, let's just show it. This is a thing you're not going to use. If you hit Shift A, let me show you a thing we're not going to do. Sometimes that's what you got to learn. You can go to armature. Rigify is an add-on that you can get, and you can do human. And you'll see, if I put it in front, That is a full human rig right there. And you can probably already begin to see why we don't want to use it. Mainly, the fuck is going on there? Excuse me? Excuse, you've got 5 bones in the ear? You got metatarsals? Yeah, you got lip bones? You got all sorts of jaw bones, all sorts of bang bone, like forehead bones. You don't need all that. You don't need all that. Yes, 1 bone for each cell. What's up, Face Implosion? You don't need. You got bones in your heels. Heel bones. So like the thing is, VRM, like VR chat, can't even read all these. They might be able to, but they're not. It's not going to do a great job interpreting that stuff, especially the stuff in the face, because of the way that like lip sync animation and tracking happens with VR models, or like and with like VTubing models. You just don't. Yeah, pupil bones is actually that's one we'll do. You like the VRM Bone Boy? Oh, I don't. Let me take a look. I've actually never seen the VRM Bone Boy. Okay, let's take a look in front. This is way closer to what we're gonna do. This is way closer to what we're gonna do. The thing I like to do is just build it from scratch, but this is basically what we're actually going to build here. So we're going to do basically exactly this, plus or minus a few bones. I don't personally bother with this leaf bone at the bottom. And yeah, help your eye bones, douse them in milk, get the calcium that you need. But we're gonna do pupil bones like that. Well, this is the exact hand bone configuration. This is a good start of what we're gonna do. And then honestly, we're just gonna add bones for the ears and the hair. Essentially, this is a really good start for the Rigify or for the VR. So that was the VRM add-on for Blender. Gives you this option, the VRM humanoid. That's a pretty good start of what you can do. Let's start though with just a total blank bone. Yeah, hey, thanks for hanging out, Crispy. Appreciate it. So with a single bone, we're gonna build it all from scratch. Blank bone. So we will have. So I went Shift A. I created a single bone. I've set the viewport display to in front, and now I grabbed the bone, and we're gonna bring it right above. Let's go into the like front orthographic view, and this is our hip bone. We're gonna start the head of it, that little bottom bit that I was talking about earlier. We're going to size that up to be right at the bottom of the hips, and the waist bone, we're going to end it right about where the waist goes. So, and now we're going to make sure that bone is selected. We're going to go into the bone tab properties right here, and where it's labeled bone right here in the top right, we're going to name that hips. And it will be important in the future for us to like name things properly. So actually, let me pull this up as reference. I bet this will have the proper naming convention for all of this. Yeah, upper leg.L. Yeah, lower leg.L. It's great. Okay, this has the proper naming convention too, so that's fantastic. Spine, chest. Yeah, okay, great. I mean, that makes sense that it has the proper naming convention. Okay, so going back into the blank bone, we are going to then making sure that the empty bone is selected. We're going to hit tab, and selecting the tail end of the bone, we're going to hit E to extrude, and then hit Z to lock the extrusion along the Z axis. And we're going to bring it till kind of just right around where you imagine the rib cage would start. And that is going to be, we're going to grab that, and instead of hips 001, which is like the typical naming convention as bones extrude, they try and name them in this way. We're going to change that to spine. And then we're going to take the tip of the spine bone, hit E to extrude again. We're going to extrude this up to around the base, like the collarbone would be. And we're going to name that. We're going to name that torso or chest, I believe. Chest. Let me actually pull up the list of the names real quick so I'm not just having to remember as best as I can. VRM bone list names. See if that gets us. Yes. All right. So now we've got our chest. And now we'll go up to, we'll extend that out one more. And actually, let me check the side view. And this is correct. We're actually, so that's the thing about having this off to the side. When I go into the side view, all of a sudden I was like, what are all these extra bones? That's that over here, but it's showing it as in front because of the way we had it set before. Let me turn off the in front property there. Okay, there we go. And so, yeah, this is looking pretty good. I'm going to grab the whole rig and bring it back just a little bit. I like it to be kind of lined up with the neck typically. Some people will model in a spine bend, like a light spine bend, by like creating this subtle curve right here. You can do that, but what I'll warn you about is other tracking software like VRChat or VCFace, like VTubing software, will try and straighten and snap all of the bones into as straight of a line as possible. And so when you do that, if you have a curve in those bones and then it straightens it out, it'll basically create a reverse curve. Your character will kind of curl in on themselves as the software kind of forces them back in, like the bones into the position that the software wants to have as the resting position. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's why I keep the bone totally straight. It's why you see them totally straight right here. There might be a very, very light curve on that VRM one, but I think it's probably likely just perfectly straight. So now we're going to grab the tail of the chest bone. We're going to hit E to extract and then Z to bring it up. This is going to be our neck bone. So just bring that up, and we can name these after. We don't need to name them right away. I'm going to hide the hair just so I make sure. We're going to end this right at the end of the neck, right where the neck is kind of like entering the head. And now we're going to, can you guess what bone is next? If you guess the head bone, you're correct. I'm proud of you. Sometimes I like to do fake outs there, but not this time. Oh, my head is slightly off center. Okay, that's actually, let me adjust this real quick. There. All right, now we'll go back into edit mode for the bone. We've got the head. And now we're going to create, or let's name these. So we'll have, instead of chest 001, we have neck. And instead of chest 002, we have head. Now what we're going to do is instead of extruding from here to try and then like point it down and create the eyes like this or something, what we're going to do is we're going to select the head bone. We're going to hit Shift D to duplicate, hit X to scale it along the, or to move it along the X axis. And then we're going to shrink it down like this. And generally, I've found it better to line up the eye, like the center of the eye closer to the tail, personally. Oh, but first we have to rotate it. So hit, with the eye bone selected, we're going to hit R and then X and then 90 and point it forward like this. And some people use eye bones to track, and then we're going to scale up. We're going to rotate it along. So grab it with R, then Z, and have it pointing out just slightly. Just slightly. Kind of like you want to be able to see the point of the eye through the center of the pupil. Kind of like this as you're looking through. And we can make adjustments to this in the future. Okay, so we've made the right eye, and we've made the general spine. Like the general, vertebrae of our character is there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create shoulders and the arms. So with the same Shift D method that we used for creating the eye bone, and you might be wondering, actually, first let's name the eye bone. We'll name that I.L, and we're naming it .L because it's on the left. It's on the character's left side, right? So that's why it's .L. That's how we name things within Blender, because left and right in 3D is relative. So you're naming it within the character's respective left and right, not like here it's our right, but it's the character's left, which confused me when I first started, because I'm already bad with my lefts and my rights. So now we're gonna grab the neck, and we're going to hit Shift D. We're gonna bring it over here around the shoulder, and I'm gonna enter front view. We're gonna hit R, and we're gonna do RY 90 to rotate it along the Y axis 90 degrees. We're gonna bring it down, and the thing is, instead of having it be slightly back, we're actually gonna bring this bone forward slightly. The constant unending battle of your right or my right. Exactly. It's the character's respective, like their left eye. Whereas in animation, you often use screen direction, which is confusing because sometimes characters turn around and then that changes things. But it's, yeah. Or in animation, sometimes you'll use overlay and underlay of what arm is on top and what arm is on bottom. Like in terms of just actually layering the different parts of the character on top of each other. So more like thinking of it like cell animation. What cell is on top and what cell is on bottom is the naming convention for a lot of 2D animation. Anyways, that's irrelevant. We're going to scale this up, bring it over slightly, because we want this to basically extend. Actually, we want it to be slightly smaller than this, because we want it to end right at the arm. That's the thing, is we want it to end right at the bicep. So now we'll name this shoulder .L. And it's important that you have the .L at the end. And I'll explain why once we've got the basic of the bone done. But it's because I'll tell you now, actually. It's because we're going to mirror everything. And the way that Blender knows how to mirror things is whether things are .L or .R. It'll flip it along the y-axis. So now grabbing the tail end of the shoulder L, we're going to extend out we're going to extract, and we're going to do it right around here, I think, because right now what we're doing is now we're creating an upper arm bone. And because we don't have a particular divot in our bone to denote where the upper arm is, but we don't have an elbow in this character, we're kind of just eyeballing this. Now we're going to extract again, and this is our lower arm, or our bicep. Or no, the upper arm is bicep. This is lower arm. And now we're going to extract one more time for the hand. And then we're going to extract here 3 more times for the fingers. So we'll have, and normally if you were doing a hand, you would break this, like if you were doing individual fingers, you would then break this off and do 3 bones, 1 for each finger. Never touched any 3D art program in your life, but fully captivated by whatever you're explaining right now. Hey, thank you so much, Ipo. I have, if you check out Faulty Friday on YouTube, my channel on YouTube, I have got Intro to Blender classes, if you're ever curious. They are designed for people who have never opened Blender before in their lives, walking you through, like, just the layout of everything and creating your first objects, figuring out how to look around in the space. I hope that they'll be good for people to learn off of. Extrude. Sorry, if I ever say extract, that's in Storyboard Pro, you extract files a lot. And so sometimes my brain replaces one word for another because ADHD. That's the faulty part of the Faulty Friday extended universe. So normally, if you were doing individual fingers, you would break this off, shrink them down, and then do, kind of individual fingers like this, and then, have to do that for each one. But because this is a low poly model, this song is wild. I'm going to skip this. It's kind of fun, but it's a little distracting. Because this is a low poly model, we can then just extend, or sorry, we can extrude out just 3 times. Hey, thank you so much for the follow, IPO. I appreciate it. You prefer IPO, EPO, IPO? We're just going to extrude 3 times. As a fellow artsy TV head, hey, I love to hear. I love TV heads, and I love art streamers. So welcome, welcome. I'm actually a 2D storyboard artist by Ippo, like Ippy. Yes, okay, like the Japanese pronunciation. I am a 2D artist by trade. I did storyboarding and animation professionally for 9-10 years, but have gotten into 3D for making my VTuber characters and stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm able to approach Blender teaching from the point of view of a beginner, I hope, because I remember the things that were difficult and confusing for me. You have to be extra rude. Yes, extrude, extra rude. Pull those vertices out where they feel uncomfortable. Yeah. So I'm just moving the bones up slightly because I often find, especially in hands, the bone works. Normally, you want the bones to be center mass. There are a few exceptions, like the shoulder. And specifically the shoulder and the fingers, I find it's good to have the bones very slightly above center mass. Just because of the way that it like curls and deforms the fingers. I find that having it slightly above center is a little helpful. Oops. And you can see I accidentally did a little bonus extrusion right here. And there's this whole extra bone in here that we don't need. If you ever need to get rid of a bone, you can just select it. Select the bone you don't want. Hit X, just like, and you can choose to dissolve or delete. In this case, we can just delete. Dissolve would work better if you had a bone in the center right here and you wanted to make sure that they connected like that. It would just create one long bone. Let's go ahead and delete that. And then a Japanese pronunciation blue screened you for a second. It's also the way in Dutch. It's okay. Hey, apparently AutoMod thinks you're cool. It didn't bother with that at all. That's funny. It's okay. It's okay. I would say I'm a PG-13 streamer, but I think I might have different restrictions on what I think PG-13 is versus what other people think is PG-13. Maybe I was just watching too much adult shit when I was 13. That might be it. I was late up on, I was up late watching Adult Swim and stuff at 13. So I think my definition versus like the FCC's definition might be slightly different. So now we're going to add the thumb bones. So we're going to take this hand bone. We're going to hit Shift D again to duplicate. We're going to rotate it. We're going to, if you ever want to rotate a bone along a very specific axis, you can choose, instead of this bounding box center thing, you can choose individual origins, and then choose like the Z, the Y, or the X, or choose the median point, and you'll rotate it along like the center. So So we're just creating the, it's funny when you said it's also that way in Dutch. I almost just like fully basically doxed myself. Not doxed myself. I almost said what my real last name is. Which is, that's the thing that I still really struggle with as a VTuber, is I just yap with the first thing that comes to mind. And I have some friends that are like bigger streamers, and I have not done any collabs with them because I'm so afraid of using their real names. Because I'm just like, I don't want that heat. I don't want that pressure of accidentally just like talking about like, oh, blank, you remember that time in college? And being like, oh, it's not, yeah, I don't want that heat. So now we're just making 3 for the thumb as well. And now we've got our hand rig. We're going to name these all now because we've been ignoring naming everything. So everything's going to be named like shoulder L08. So that's not what we want. For the upper arm, let me double check, make sure I'm giving you the right name. I believe it is, I thought it was upper arm. No, it's bicep, right? This list I have found is not. I'm just going to reference this. Upper arm, yeah, upper arm.l. I believe you can also do bicep.l and it will be just fine. I'm pretty sure my rig has the name as bicep.l. Now we do lower arm.l. And now we're going to have hand.l. And now just choose your favorite finger. I'm actually going to do index finger because I feel like the index curling or pointing is going to be the most expressive. I can understand why you would think like middle or ring here because of the way that because of where it's centered. But think of like with hand tracking, would you want this to curl when your index finger is curled or not? That's kind of like the question. Maybe you want it to like track with your middle finger. Maybe that would be more expressive for you. This part is just personal preference because we're not doing all 4 fingers. This part is, just, yes, middle and ring finger move a lot more too, which maybe is what you want here because of the way that, like if you're just doing a full hand expression, because there is pretty decent hand tracking in a lot of the stuff that, like a lot of the software we're going to be using. But I think index makes the most sense here. Index.L.001. And then we'll just go ahead and copy paste that. And because it's 001, that'll automatically change to 002 as you just hit enter, which is very nice. And then here, obviously, thumb. Thumb.L.001. Okay, so now we're going to make our upper leg. And I'm doing the duplicate the hips, grabbing the hips. I'm going to hit R, then X, 180. So we're flipping it totally upside down. And now we're grabbing that and dragging it down. And then you'll see that because the hips weren't parented to anything, these upper legs don't have a parent, and we don't want any orphan bones, which is literally what they're called when they don't have a parent. It's very sad. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the upper leg bone, click on the hip bone second, and hit Control P. And you'll see it brings up this Make Parent menu, and you're going to select Keep Offset. And you'll see that creates... Oops, actually, sorry, I did that. I did that exactly backwards. You have to select the child, then the hip bone, hit select Control P, and do Keep Offset. It's not giving me that as an option right now because that is what is already set. The thing that you want to do... So child, then parent, and then hit Control P and Control or keep offset. And you'll notice keep offset because if we had done connected, I can show you this, it'll move the bone in a direction we don't want. It'll like move the bone over. You want to do keep offset, and then you'll see this like kind of thin string. It's a little hard to see on stream. You'll see this dotted line that is connecting the hip bone to the upper leg, and that is what you want. And you want to make sure it's coming from the tail of the hips. And now you'll see. And so now I'm just going to center the leg bone, and I'm going to have it end right around here. I might move it back slightly, so it's a little bit more center mass like this. And we're going to have the upper leg bone end right at kind of like the back of the kneecap, which right here for us is right below the lip of the boot. We're going to extrude one more time. Hit Z to bring it straight down, and we're going to end that one right at the ankles, or kind of ankles and top of foot. Now we're going to extrude another time. We're going to bring this one down to the bottom of the foot, but also forward. And we're going to bring that to like right where you would consider like the balls of the feet. And now we're going to extrude one more time and make our bone, or make our toes. And you want this to be flush with the ground plane. So specifically, you want like you want to drag the tail of the toe down to like the absolute bottom of your foot. Because most tracking software is going to make this bottom bit totally and perfectly straight. And so if you have if your toe bone comes out just naturally forward like this, even though it seems like a very little like amount of space here between like the bottom of the foot, this bit of the bone will get tugged down towards the ground, and then your like toes will be basically perpetually curled and clipping through the ground. So you want to kind of make sure that the toe is perfectly flat and aligned with the bottom of your foot. Like that bone here. Get that as flat as possible to prevent any toe clipping. That looks about right. Now we'll name these. We've got thigh.l. These ones have specific names. We've got calf.l or shin. It might be shin. Let me double check against this. Lower, they call it lower leg. I'm pretty sure you can also name it shin or calf. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, yeah. Other things I'm seeing say lower leg as well. I definitely wrote shin, so maybe the naming doesn't need to be as precise as I thought, because it's definitely shin on the Friday model. I'm referencing that now, but we'll do it. We'll do it official. Lower leg.l. And now we'll do foot.l. And we'll do toe.l. So now we have our base model here. We've got hips, spine, chest, neck, head, eye left, shoulder left, upper arm left, lower arm left, hand left. And we've got our 3 bones for our kind of gloved finger. And we've got thumb L01, thumb L02, thumb L03. And we've got thigh.L, lower leg.L, foot.L, and toe.L. And you know what? Just for simplicity, I'm going to change thigh.L to upper leg, just so it's consistent, even though turns out I don't think it matters as much as I thought it did before. I thought that name had to be very specific, but turns out that's maybe not true. Okay. There's a few other bones we're going to add before we mirror everything. It's time to talk about the butt bone. Now, you don't need this. This is an optional bone. In my experience, it adds a lot. Because of course. Um, so I would recommend, again, we're going to duplicate the hips. So clicking on the hips, hitting Shift D, rotating it, and bringing it over. And now we're going to go into the side view. We're going to rotate it negative 90 degrees along the Y. Oh, wait. Sorry. Rotate it just perfectly along. Oh, rotate along. There we go. Along the X axis, not the Y. And we're going to have it pointing out towards the booty. And what this does is, I mean, this is a way that you can do jiggle physics once you bring these bones into Unity. And if you do want jiggle physics, I recommend turning this into 2 bones, having one as the root and one as the jiggle. So if you want jiggle physics, you want something like that. But that's not what we're adding these bones for. This bone is actually just to add, we're going to add what's called a constraint. And once we rig everything, it's basically going to help the butt not sink or flatten or kind of crush in on itself when the leg is bending at more extreme angles. Really, really helpful for that. Of just basically adding extra like mass, or telling the body like, hey, this is supposed to be a little bit more solid and bend in specific ways. Really, really helpful for the glutes in particular, because it's a part of the body that often breaks with rigging. And so people spend a lot of time and focus making that area work, which is why so much tech goes into making jiggle physics and stuff like that. Is actually sometimes making the jiggle physics work really well. It makes it easier to do everything else. So now we've also got the head. Oh, so we'll go ahead and we'll name that instead of hips 001, we'll name that bone glutes.l, because I'm a professional. And now with the head, oh, and we'll make sure that that is also parented. Okay, I keep on forgetting. So grabbing glutes.l and then the hip bone, hitting Control P, doing keep offset just like we did for the upper leg. And now we'll make the ear bones, specifically because we have a bunny girl. And we're going to do Shift D. And we're going to duplicate the head bone and shrink that down. Enter this front view mode and rotate it. No, the glutes are not centered. We're going to have one for each cheek, and that way it'll copy the rotation of the leg rotations for each cheek, essentially. It's like individual muscles that we're thinking about here. Specifically for the glute bone, that part is not centered because you do want it to, you're going to want another one on the other side because they're going to rotate separately and independently of each other when the legs are bending independently of each other. It's like extra support for when the leg is bending. Now we're going to bring the ear back just a little bit as it's currently too far forward. And now we'll probably add, I think 3 bones similar to the finger. If we were doing like a higher res character, you know, we might do this with more bones. But I think for low poly specifically, the 3, we could even probably get away with 2 bones, but I added extra geometry into the ear specifically for a little bit of jiggle physics. That's where we are going to actually add jiggle physics once we get into Unity. I'll show how to set that up. Okay. So now we've got all the bones we need. Some people do add this bone to the bottom as this like extra control bone that you can grab the entire body by. it doesn't hurt to have that. I don't know what they call it. They call it root. Yeah, the root bone. It makes a lot of sense. Sorry for the coughs. Let me take a quick sip. Do the parent lines always come from the wider ends of the bone? Yes. So, because they will always come from the head. They're actually, what they're really doing is they're coming from the tail of this bone and connecting to the head of this bone. Because what it is the hips here are going to control the rotation. Rotating the hips will rotate everything that it's connected to, because that's the root for our body. And you so it's really coming from the tail of the hips into the head of the glutes and the upper leg. And that's saying that, hey, this rotation, the rotation of the tail, take that information and send it to the heads of these bones. And then the heads of these bones are parented, but like connected parented to these other bones coming out of it. So it's all kind of like a hierarchy. It's like a family tree, and the hips are the base, and then like the upper leg is like the grandparent. Hey, what's up, Riz? Thank you for the hydrate. I did just take a sip. The upper leg is the hydrate, or is the hydrate. This is like the great grandparent. The upper leg is like the great grandparent. The lower leg is the grandparent. The foot is the parent, and the toe is the child. And so each one is going to inform the other, you know? But the others will have more greater independence as they go on. And that'll make sense as we, once we actually start weight painting everything. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to select the armature. Inside of edit mode, we're going to hit A to select all. We're going to right click, choose mirror, and then we're going to do sorry, not mirror, symmetrize. And this is why we added the dot L's to everything. Because when we symmetrize, it knows to flip everything with an L in the name to the right side. Oh, and because we didn't do that to the ear, as you can see right here, it did not flip the ear bones. But what we can do is we can name this now ear 001 or ear.l.001. Continue on the naming convention. ear.l.002.003. And then if that happens to you, you don't have to like delete half of them and re-symmetrize it again. Just select the bones that you want and choose symmetrize. And now we were able to add bones to the whole thing, including the eyes and the glutes and the hand and everything. We've got it all good. So we can now it's gonna look weird because we're not going to rig the hair just yet. We're going to add that in after we have figured out a bunch of the other the rigging for the character. The hair is gonna come after. We have got the rig and we've got the meshes that we want to assign to the rig. But right now, if we select the rig and we enter what's called pose mode with Control T with the rig selected, you'll see it doesn't actually do anything. Right now, it's just like totally independent. And oh, that's actually the fact that these ears were moving. These ears were parented to the wrong thing. They are currently parented to the neck instead of the the bam bam. I was like, please, I'm trying to explain. We're gonna grab the ear L and then the head and make sure we hit make parent, keep offset, and then same thing with the ear right. Grab the child, then the parent, hit keep offset, and now when we re-enter parent mode, you should see like basically what we've done is like we've created the skeleton. And again, this is a great time to check your work before we make other mistakes, because I've forgotten to parent the thumb to the hand. So I'll do that on both sides real quick. Grabbing the thumb bone, then the hand bone, then hitting keep offset. And now when we go back into pose mode, we see that that moves around properly. And so when I was talking about parenting, this is kind of what I mean, right? It's when I grab the hips now, everything moves. Because the hips are like the grandparents of everything, the great-great-grandparents. Everything comes from the hips, just like life. Yes, you can edit the parents after doing the mirror, but try and keep things... yeah, you can definitely edit the parents. I would recommend try not to edit individual sides without having this apply changes, this little butterfly mirror. If you're going to make changes to one side, try and do that to both to keep it as mirrored as possible. Just so that keeping things as symmetrical as possible, as long as possible in 3D is very, very helpful. It won't break things now if you do make things asymmetrical. Like, it's an okay time to start messing around with asymmetry, but it does make this next part a little trickier. So we've got the bones. Everything's parented properly. They're all named properly. And it's time to assign the bones to the model. All right, so selecting everything with A, and then making sure that the armature is selected last. We're going to hit Control P to parent, and you'll see it's the right option when you've got armature deform pops up as an option. And there are some people who like to do automatic weights, and there are some people who like to start with empty groups. This is a personal taste thing of how you like to start your process. If you want to start with like a rough sketch, essentially, that it's like that Blender has filled in for you based off of your like VTuber's mesh and bones, automatic weights. If you have a really simple basic mesh and really simple basic armature, automatic weights might get you 70-80% of the way there. Empty groups is how I like to start personally, because I like to have a little bit more control over the weight paints. And weight paints is like the ownership that the bone has over the part of the body. And I'll show you what I mean. We're going to do automatic weights just for an example here, and then we're going to back up. So automatic weights, if we do that, and then we select the body, and then select the armature, we'll see if we hit Control T, we go into pose mode, and you'll see we've got the bones are starting to move. Not the eyes. Not the eyes or face. They missed that bit. They got the ears pretty well. So this is what automatic weights does. Is automatic weights will start you with stuff like that, where honestly, actually, because this is working pretty well, maybe we want to start with automatic weights. Empty weights will basically create, it won't look like anything's moved, and then you have to weight paint it on yourself manually. Her face did get left behind, and I'll show exactly how we fix that in just a second. But the automatic weights, honestly, doing pretty good here. So though you'll see things like here, actually, watch the face. So I'm moving the shoulder. The face is stretching. I just reset the bones by hitting Control Z, but that's a great question. The way that you reset, let's say we're in pose mode, we've moved into a crazy position, right? That we don't want anymore. This is an excellent question. We've stretched the face and we're like, oh Lord, what have I done? I've committed a crime against nature, and God himself is angry with me. So what you can do is this is in pose mode. You hit A to select all bones. You go up to pose and you choose clear all, clear transform, then all. And it will bring it back to your normal resting position. So that's select all bones with A, go to pose, clear transform, all. Extremely helpful. because we're going to be in and out of this mode a lot while testing. So we're now so now that we've seen, okay, the face is left behind, the arm is affecting the face and stuff. This is why I like to start with empty groups, is because it gives you perfect control over what everything starts with. You won't run into situations where the shoulder is affecting the face. You can avoid that by starting from scratch, but automatic weights is a good jumping off point. So to see what this looks like, to see what these weights that we supposedly painted are, you go into object mode, yeah, and you select the rig and then the mesh that you want to look at. And this is a big part of why having them all in one mesh is really helpful at this point. And then you're going to hit Control Tab and select Weight Paint. And now you'll see it's gotten blue. And if you use Alt and click while in this mode, it's basically a heat map, right? So if we hit Alt click to select a bone, we see exactly what areas that bone wants to influence. So the head, despite being the closest thing to, well, actually, because the eyes, yeah, hey, thanks so much for hanging out, Epo. I appreciate it. So because the eye bones are technically closer to the back of the head, the automatic weights went in and assigned they assigned the back of the head to the eye bones, right? Things like this start to happen. Or like the neck is assigned to the tongue because it's technically the closest, instead of the head bone being assigned to the tongue. Or the shoulder being assigned to the chin. So this is what happens with automatic weight paints. It did a pretty good job for like the shoulders and the arms and honestly the ears and stuff. So maybe like what you like to do is just like, you know, tweak it from here. Be like, hey, and let me show you how you tweak it. So let's just start like this, right? Let's say we're starting with automatic weights. What I like to do now often is I do like to go into object mode, click on the armature itself, choose the data tab, and go to display as stick, because that gets the bones a little bit more out of the way for what we're doing. Then I'm going to control the armature, or click the armature, then the mesh, hit Control T to enter weight paint mode. And now let's explain how to actually weight paint. So weight painting is painting this heat map that is defining the control of each bone to each part of the mesh. So specifically, let's use just the tip of the ear as an example. Because the tip of the ear here is perfectly red, it's going to control that bit 100%. And you see it like kind of gradiates down. It has a gradient effect down, and it becomes less controlling, less forceful of like movement and manipulation until it becomes dark blue and isn't affecting anything at all. So using basically the same method that we use to texture paint things, we can use these three tools. The ones I use the most, honestly, the two I use the most are brush and blur. So brush, you'll see at the top left here, we've got paint, and then we've got weight, radius, and strength. Radius is how big your brush is. Weight is basically a scale of 0 to 1. 0, this is in weight paint mode. To change the bone view, yeah, you go into object mode and then select the rig, and then go to this data tab and display as stick for changing the armature view. Oh, so the paintbrushes is that's in weight paint mode. So the way you enter weight paint mode is you make sure that you've got the this is a good thing. There's two different ways that you can start to control your mesh and the rig at this point. Um if you select the mesh and then the rig and you hit Control T, or you'll see that it brings you into pose mode. This pose mode is for like animation and for testing out your rig. So that's if you select the mesh and then if you select the mesh and then the rig, you'll get into pose mode by hitting Control T. If you choose the rig and then the mesh, so reverse order, and hit Control Tab or yeah, and then hit Control Tab, it'll bring up this little wheel menu and you'll see weight paint as an option. So mesh, then rig, you'll get pose mode. Rig, then mesh, it'll bring up the little wheel and that'll give you access to weight paint. Think of it as like, okay, I'm choosing this rig to edit this mesh with the weight paints. Or I'm choosing this mesh to be controlled by this rig for posing. It's a little confusing, but it just changes depending on the order that you selected those things in. Because it's changing what your active selected object is. So now, with the top of this ear, yeah, it's tough to remember without notes. Luckily, if you get it wrong, now you'll know exactly what, like, I still do. When I'm in a rush, I do it in the wrong order and I'll accidentally enter like pose mode when I mean to enter weight paint mode, just because like sometimes you just select things in the wrong order. You grab it, like you misclick kind of thing. It's important to remember it's not the end of the world if that happens. Just do it the other way around and then you'll get the version you want. But as long as you know that there's two things that can happen there, that's the most important part. So another important thing to note in weight painting mode, I really recommend having mirror enable mesh symmetry on the x-axis. I really yeah, it's less complicated than it sounds. I think it's one of those things where once you're actually following along, you're like, okay, there's these two things. They change depending on which order I click on them. But when you're I think when you're just taking notes and trying to like absorb it all before actually starting, it can feel a little overwhelming because you're not hands-on. You're not creating that muscle memory, and that can make things difficult, especially in Blender, because it can feel like information overload. So that happens. So the other thing that I really recommend having is this mirror along the x-axis, and that just means any weight paint adjustments that you make currently to one side of the mirrored mesh will happen on the other side as well. Oh, excuse me. That's the first big cough fit I've had for a little while. Luckily, my cough kind of came back over the weekend, but it's fading now. So, how are you controlling what color it paints? This is what I meant to be answering before. So radius is the size. Weight is the color, essentially. With 1 being red, 100% control of this part of the mesh to this bone. With 0 being 0% totally blue. Yeah, I still need to edit the last one. The last one took a little bit of off-stream work as well. So, weight will change the color that you're painting with. Basically, think of it as 0% to 100%. They just use the word 0 to 1 as like off and on, like computers. So 1 is 100% control, and that's red. And you can see as I'm painting it red to this bone, it's getting more or less controlled by this this twist in the bone that I put in pose mode. And if I have it 0, and then I move this bone, it like doesn't move at all, right? Or there's still a little bit of it painted there that it's catching. But if it's at 0, that's not going to move at all. When I have it at 1, it moves significantly more. And then you can use this blur tool with the radius to kind of like soften the edges of the control a little bit, so it's not so clippy as it moves around. Something I would like to explain now is the next thing I'd like to get into is vertex groups. So you'll see, oops, the tool bit accidentally. Okay, so if we see this toolbar that I'm currently covering, and you see this little triangle with these, it's the data thing. So if we enter edit mode into our model, our mesh of the face, we'll see that we get this option here, this triangle with little vertex groups, or little vertices kind of on the ends. That's our data tab. We're going to enter. Okay. So the next thing I want to go over is vertex groups, because vertex groups are going to make things easier to edit weight paints in bulk and make sure that we're removing weight paints from areas we don't want it to be in. So if we enter edit mode into our mesh, and we'll see, like the wireframe here, what we'll do, you'll see this little tab here, this triangle with the vertices on it. And when you click on that, you'll see this vertex group information right here. And so if you, and you'll see it's auto-assigned vertex groups based off of our bones. This is basically saying like, oh, these certain vertices are being influenced by these bones. So any bone will automatically get a vertex group. But we can also create our own vertex group. And what you'll see here is there's a weight right here, right? And that weight is how much weight paint does the current vertex group have assigned. So what I like to do is I like to make sure that I've got vertex groups for things like the teeth, the tongue, the eyes, the eye whites, the eyebrows. Little bits of the face that I know I want to like completely remove all other weight paint information from. And so the way that we do this is I'm just going to select the eye here, all of the faces there. I've got them all selected, and I deleted the faces in the back. So it's just this little disc. And I'm going to hit this little plus button here that says add vertex group. And I'm going to name that I.L. And now I will grab this. I'll start selecting this other eye and make I.R. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the eye whites. And I'll show you why this is so handy in just a second. So I'm creating another vertex group called iWhite.L. And actually here, I can show you now why it's so handy. So, oh, I forgot to actually hit assign. Oops, that's my bad. So to actually make the vertex groups work, you need to make sure you have the things assigned, or the things you want selected. Should we always remove the other parts of the eye during modeling? So it's just a disc? Yeah, I mean, you don't need to, but it makes it handy for like bits like this, where it's like there's no reason to have the back of the eye faces there. It's not the worst thing in the world to have, but it can make it like selecting things for vertex groups like this a little clumsy. So once you've got the vertexes selected that you want to assign to the vertex group, you hit assign, you hit with the weight of 1, And now we'll do the same for the right eye. Make sure the vertex group that we wanted assigned to is selected, and we'll hit assign. Now we'll do the same for the... Now, like, the thing that makes this really helpful is now I can make sure that I select, like, if I select the eye left vertex group right here, and I hit select, you'll see it selects the entire, every face in that vertex group. So it just makes it's an easy way to select all that stuff without having to get fussy like we did before. And then I can just hit like H to hide. And if I wanted to hide the eye white, I could select the eye white.l. Oh wait, I haven't assigned that yet. So grab those faces, assign them to the eye white.l, and then hit H to hide. And then hit Control H to unhide. Or now if I wanted to have I could like select the entire face and then just deselect like the eye.l by hitting deselect on that vertex group. So it's really just assigning vertexes to specific groups that then make them more easily selectable. And that's going to make weight painting these things a lot easier, because we'll be able to turn certain things invisible or make them the only thing visible to make sure that they're getting the proper the proper weight paint assigned to them. So now I'm going to select, let me make sure, select that, and I'm going to go ahead and hide the left pupil or the right pupil, and select those eye whites. And I will go ahead and create a new group, eye white.r. This isn't like a 100% required, and then hit assign. It's not a 100% required part of the process. I find it very helpful for when I'm trying to like make edits in the future to have these as easily selectable, quickly selectable bits. So eyebrow.l, assign, and we'll create eyebrow.r and assign. Now we'll just do the same for the teeth and the tongue. Hey, what's up, Sour Plum Wine? I hope you're doing well. Yeah, I am. We're working on, I'm doing a little low poly, like 101 thing for chat because people were asking. I'm editing these as kind of like intro to Blender lessons and stuff for people on YouTube. And right now we're just creating some vertex groups. It's the most exciting part of Blender is just, you know, organizational, small menial organizational tasks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, chat designed the bunny here. I can turn on the hair too. So I had a bunch of different prompts that chat could choose from, and they chose a upbeat, energetic bunny girl mage with dreadlocks. Oh, thank you. I should save. I have been saving actually, but everyone else, remember to save as you go along. Don't wait for me to remind you to save. Then it will be too late. Okay, we're just going to select. We're trying to select all of the faces on the underside. You can also get rid of the underside of the tongue. I usually have the tongue as a full physical object. You don't need to. But sometimes you do run into situations like this where it's like kind of clipping through the back of the mouth and can get a little funky. So sometimes that makes it nice if you're not needing to worry about that. So we'll create another vertex group. Go tongue, assign. Okay, so now we've got all of these things. We've got the tongue, the teeth, the tooth, and the lips. No, we've got the pupil and the eye white all as their own thing, the eyebrows as well. So now we can also, there's like different things that you can like, okay. So now as we go through the different bones as we're weight painting, we can like select like this eye bone, right? And we can hit tab, and we saw that that was a lot of the face and the we saw it was all the face and the eye whites, none of the actual eye, right? So what we can do is we can go to like the head, or we can enter tab, and we can select everything and then just deselect the eye now that we've got it as an option. So IL will hide, and now we'll have the ability when we alt click this bone. It's the only thing. Yes, eye bones. Everyone's got them, whether you know it or not. And now we it's the only thing around, so we don't have to worry about painting everything with 100% opacity. Like, we don't have to worry about it spilling over into the rest of the rig because we've hidden all of the other parts. So that's what the vertex groups just make easily kind of selectable bits that you can hide, deselect, or unassign from certain things. And now it's like, okay, well, now I want to hide everything but the eye. So I can make sure the eye is selected, and then, or make sure it's only the eye that's selected, and then hit that, hide that. And now, like when I select this bone and see that, oh, it's also controlling the like cheek and like the back of the eye white and stuff, and I don't want any of that, we can go ahead and drop it to 0 on the weight here when we're in weight paint mode, and erase that control from the rest of the face. So it doesn't control any of that, because we don't want the eye bone to be controlling the back of the head. That's not what it's there for. Eye bone's connected to the head bone. It's true. It really is, at least in 3D. And now let's like, we want the head bone to move everything. So let's go ahead, enter edit mode, and we can select the oh, I accidentally assigned a bunch of wrong stuff to that. I accidentally assigned a bunch of wrong stuff to the eye. Basically everything but what I wanted assigned to the eye. Oh, it's the bone. The bone is assigned to that. Okay, so what we can do, actually, this is perfect. Because we already had the eye bones, I actually didn't need to make them myself. What we can do is we see all of the bones that, or all of the parts of the mesh that technically have influence from the eye bone. And what we can do is we can actually hit remove, because we don't actually want any of that mesh to be part of what this bone's vertex group thinks it is. What we do want to be on the bone's vertex group is the actual eye. So we can select the eye right and hit assign, and you'll see it's auto painted that, and it's removed everything else. So taking this same idea of, let's select the head bone, we'll hide the eye with H, and we can see, okay, the head bone selected most things. That's okay, but for whatever reason, the head bone isn't affecting the base of the ear at all. So let's select the little bits that aren't selected by the head bone. We'll leave the ears for the ear bone. And we'll basically make sure that everything we want to move along with the head, which would include the teeth here, we want the teeth included, and the tongue. So actually, basically everything. Well, not everything, because we don't want the eyebrows. So we're just going through, we're selecting all of the faces, all of the bits of the mesh that we do want connected and controlled by the head bone, like the tongue, the teeth, and the whole head. And with this vertex group assigned, with this vertex group selected, the head one, and weight set to 1, if we hit assign, and then we tab back out into vertex, into weight paint mode, you'll see, oh, other than these, at the back of the whites of the eyes, which I somehow missed, hit assign, now you'll see, like, oh, it's, the whole head is now assigned 100% of control to the head bone. That's actually what we want. So you can use vertex groups to like select what part of the mesh. Think of the vertex groups as like telling you what bones exist and then what parts of the mesh are being like attributed weight to those bones. But you can also just do it. Hey, what's up, honey? Yeah, you're perfectly early. So you can use that vertex mode. I often use the vertex very specifically for the head, because it's like, okay, selecting like the neck bone here, we see like the tongue is lit up, right? The tongue and like the head is all lit up. We actually don't want any of the head to be controlled by the neck. And so we can, with the neck vertex group selected, and then all of the mesh that we want to remove from that vertex group, we hit A, we drag the weight down, and we hit, or we could either drag weight down and hit assign, or we could just hit remove. And now, that's not being controlled by the neck anymore. Or like the head isn't being controlled. It still kind of looks like it's being controlled. Maybe that's the shoulders. Oh yeah, the shoulders are now having influence. So what are we doing? That's a great question. So we have created a rig for our bunny girl. And now with the rig that we've created, which is these sticks right here, we are assigning how much each of these sticks control each part of the model. And as you can probably guess, the shoulders shouldn't affect the cheeks. So we could use the vertex groups again to do that, to remove all of the head of the vertex groups from the shoulders. That's often what I like to do, but I also understand it's a little confusing and a little overwhelming. Vertex groups are a little advanced. You can just you can go into weight paint, select the brush, set the weight to 0, to like 0% control. You can just go in and paint everything as best as you can. The reason I don't like this method as much is it's really easy to miss certain vertexes. Like it's pretty like sometimes you'll luckily this model isn't too complicated, but there are times in like there are times in rigging and modeling where it's like, oh, you'll start moving a character's hand and suddenly like you'll move their right hand and the left part of their cheek starts moving and you can't find it. And so that's when using vertex groups to assign or remove weight paints is really, really helpful. Ooh, I would love to see that, honey. Thank you. Yeah, fan art would be so cute. I wonder, yeah, I bet there's mobile apps that do 3D modeling these days. It's amazing how far a lot of that stuff has come. So now I'm just using the blur tool to blur out the base of the ears a little bit so it's not so sharp. And I'm going to make sure that the eyes are properly assigned. And yeah, you'll see now as we rotate. Oh, I was like, why isn't it moving? I forgot to parent the eyes to the head. So entering edit mode into the armature, selecting the eye bone and then the head bone, and then hitting Control P to keep offset. There we go. And it's going along with the beat. So now we've got the neck is able to move, and she can rotate, she can tilt, she can even look around. It's a little weird right now because of just the angle she's at. But her eyebrows aren't following, so we need to make sure her eyebrows should also be assigned to the head bone, actually. So we will control the armature, select the armature, select the head mesh once again, hit Control T, go into weight paint. With the head bone selected, we'll go ahead and paint the eyebrows to 100% control. Yeah, she does go a little derpy sometimes. I mean, honestly, you want to make your character go as derpy as possible. Thank you for the hydrate. I do need that. You kind of want your character to go as derpy as possible because, like, what you're really trying to do right now is you're trying to break your toys, right? In a real way, you're trying to, like, be like, I need to break this stuff as much as possible because, like, you don't want the ear bending this way to affect your eye shape, right? Like, typically you don't. It's too stretchy. So I really try and break the character as much as I can in this point. Yeah, exactly. You break to see how far you can, like, how much you can get away with. Because you want it to not break in the future when you're doing these extreme poses. You want to be able to push a character to be as expressive as possible before they break. Thank you. I will save. So the character will have brow movement. The brow movement will be done using shape keys, which that will be next week's lesson. Shape keys are how you, like, create expression for VTubers. Yeah, throw stuff or the fart command is how people remind me to save. So yeah, so shape keys will be a way that you can use the pre-existing geometry that's there. It happens. I forget to check in on people's streams all the time. Yes, a nesting doll of a thing to learn. It's true. There's always more steps. And some of it is, like, not, I mean, we're already getting most of the way there. Shape keys are like shape keys, and then importing it into VTubing software is really the final step for everything. But, like, for this, we're just, like, going around, selecting each bone, rotating that bone, and, like, kind of trying to break it, right? Like, I'm trying to see, okay, like, and then adjusting the weights of it slightly so that it just bends slightly more friendly. And I will say this part of the process is probably the longest that it, like, it's one of the bits that took me longest to learn, but it's actually not that long of a process once you get used to it. And there are people who have ways of, like, you can use the gradient tool to, like, really, like, smooth things out. I don't use the gradient tool. It confuses me too much still, but yes, I set the brows to the head bone because what that means is they will basically always follow the head rotation as much as they can, which that's what you want. The eye bones are controlling the eye mesh themselves, but they're still parented to the head bone. So the eyes are still getting controlled by the head. It's just that there's kind of a middleman in between, and the eye bone can give them additional information. Like, if we can have her, like, look around like this, you know? If we rotate these, like, so we need these kind of, like, additional bits of information, and that's specifically for, like, eye tracking. in this sort of software, or like in VTubing software in general. Like we want to be able to have this eye tracking motion. And then yeah, once it gets too far and you need to bring things back, just select all of the bones with A in pose mode, go up to pose, clear transform, and hit all. It'll snap everything back into because yes, they were turning into Yoda ears, absolutely. Probably in 100 years. That's what I thought too, honey, until I wanted to make my model and I was like, it's time to learn. You just need a project to motivate you. Once you've got the thing you want to learn how to do, it's learn something for a reason is always, and that way you can apply it as quickly as possible and really internalize the information rather than learning things like just in case. I typically think that's for the best. So now I think we've got the head is just about rigged properly. Your OC Darren would love to. I mean, yeah, I would love to see if people ever end up making stuff out of, like from these lessons. I would love to see them. So now I'm just like messing around in pose mode. Oop, that's nope. Unfortunately, sometimes when you are just like moving arms, you're like, oh, I did a bad salute there. That's just because the arm was stiff. The lessons will be going probably until about 5:30. Because actually the face is like the most complicated bit, and we've done most of that already. So let's take a look at the fingers. We want to rotate these in. Okay, so we'll probably need to weight paint the fingers a little bit more specifically. They're not too bad. But the spine, the back, like all of that's working pretty good. Let's see how the legs are working. Okay, so this is a thing that happens a lot with especially characters with skirts, is that kind of clipping around the upper leg. That's very common. So I just like, this is when I start messing around. It's actually looking pretty good from behind. So that's good. You kind of just start rotating things. And seeing how they move. And honestly, yeah, not bad. Like the weight paint messed up a lot around the face because we had those extra bones for the eyes and the ears. So we had to do a lot of like the painting the eyes, the eyebrows, the teeth, and the tongue and that stuff custom. But a lot of the body, yeah, it got us 80-90% of the way there. Yeah, YMCA poses is a great point. Okay, so I'm going to reset these poses, clear transform. And then there's a few things that I know I need to do just from looking at that stuff, which is the hands will need a little bit of touch up. The top of the legs will need a little bit of touch up. And then I'll show how to do the conform or the constraint stuff to show off why we added the butt bones in the first place. So first let's fix the fingers. So yeah, as you can see, like auto paint, I don't know why it assigned so much of the glove up here to this hand, but that's why like the wrist and like glove was kind of like morphing like and like deforming when I was just trying to move the hand. So we'll just take that bone in the middle, selecting it with alt click, and then unpainting, essentially painting with the weight of 0 onto the glove, so that when we move it in the future, let's try it now, we can do even less. Yeah, and having a little bit of movement here is fine. So it squashes just a touch. Oh, it's also quite possible that, okay, yeah, see, the reason it was still bending some is because even though I had removed all of the weight from the hand, it hadn't removed it all from the thumb. So all clicking on the thumb with alt click, and all of a sudden we see, okay, yeah, there's this extra like influence from the thumb squishing in this bit. And so the fingers and the face are the two areas that you definitely want to pay the most attention to when you're like making when you're adding weight paints. But honestly, the rest of this doesn't look too bad. The stretch there, especially for a low poly model where we're not going to be going too crazy, is not so bad. And then I'm just using the blur to even out some of this a little bit. Now with the Now we'll take a look at the fingers. Bending that in. So I want it to bend more right along that crease. I actually don't want it to bend the middle of the hand. So we'll unpaint right around here and paint more like right here on this bit. So I didn't add that much geometry to the fingers, so the fingers are gonna be a little wonky because I didn't give her like proper fingers. But like that bend, and we'll just paint this a little bit more right at the fingertips. Yeah, exactly. She's got mittens. Uh and so it can be a little tricky sometimes when you've got like those specific constraints with a model. So the thing I like to do for weight painting fingers to see if they're looking good is just try and curl them in on themselves like this. We often won't be, you know, um, uh, doing too extreme of a hand pose with uh, a character design like this. Like the most you're really gonna do is make sure you can do like a thumbs up, and make sure that you can do like a grab pose and an open hand pose, because those are really the only options you have. And then it's a lot of just kind of, you know, this is kind of a tidying process. I actually find it quite soothing. And again, it's important to know that like nothing you do at this point is irreversible. You're not going to do irreversible damage to your model by weight painting it weird. Like you might lose a few hours of progress at worst, but like there's nothing here that can't be undone. It's like it's way less permanent than like anything you've like maybe changed about your model. Like changing the mesh and then saving over that, or changing a texture and then saving over that. That stuff is a little bit more high stakes. This stuff is like worst case scenario, you erase it and you redo it. So even though it seems a little like overwhelming, it's one of those things where it's actually like kind of not, it's not too, it shouldn't be a stressful process. Maybe sometimes it can be a confusing process or like just feel maybe even a tad tedious, but hopefully not stressful. Thumbs up, grab, and just like an open hand. Like if you've only got like kind of glove fingers like this, being like an open hand, like what you modeled it in, and thumbs up and point is kind of your only like choices. So eventually you can also, I'm like, okay, I need to clear the posing here. And unfortunately, you can't clear posing in waypaint mode, so you have to go back into pose mode. So just go back into object mode, select the object, then the armature, Control T to go into pose mode, clear transforms. And a good way, in my opinion, a good way to test your finger like rotation and your finger waypainting is to grab all three fingers, hit R for rotate, and then hit Y twice for, or sorry, not, I guess actually, hit, go to the transform pivot point, choose individual origins, and then hit R and Y twice. Oh, maybe R and Z. R and Z twice for this specific model because of the way that the bones are rolled. So, what that did is it is rotating each finger bone along its individual Z axis. And so it's curling it out and in. And that is like when you choose individual origins like that, it shows you like what it'll look like when your character is trying to curl in the hand or curl out. And that looks pretty good to me. We can do the same thing with the thumb. So grab the that all depends on it, like the whether it's Y or Z depends on what orientation you have your character facing. So I'm gonna grab these three thumb bones, hit R, and then X, just like we did with the others. X twice, and then so that's coming in a little close. So maybe it's the thumb that's R and Z. One of them is, yeah, okay, that's it. Okay, so the thumb might still need a little bit of work. Because like the fingers rolled in really well. But then when making a fist, that's not the worst fist I've ever seen. Yeah, that's okay. I think what happened there is let's go into edit mode real quick with these back in their default position. Let's go into edit mode for the armature. And then I'm going to hit N, bring out this little extra menu here, and we're going to choose view. Sorry, not view, item. And the thing we want is roll. So we want to make sure the display for the bones for this one is octahedral. And then the roll of the bones is basically how the bones fold in on themselves. It's the face direction of the bones. So something we can do is click on this little axis tab down here in the bottom right, and we'll see we've got the Z and X pointed in certain directions, and we want to make sure that those are all facing basically exactly the same direction, and one of them facing up, ideally. And so we can adjust this roll backwards so that Z is facing up out of the hand like that. And that set it to 159. So now we just grab each individual bone below that and make sure that the Z is kind of also lining up and pointing out. And There are people who say that you always want to have your roll set to 0. That has not been true in my case. Making sure that the bones are always oriented in the same direction, so like the Z's are always pointing in the same way that you want them to be rotating in together, or that they've all always got one pointing out or down. Really, really helpful. So up or down, one pointing out. So here we've got the X's coming down. Now we went back into pose mode. Select these 3 again. Let's try that with the individual origins rotation. That Z or X. That's the right one. Yeah. So that is the way we want our thumb to move. So it's bending, rotating along the X properly because we've rotated the Z out. And it doesn't matter what like orientation, which axis you have pointing out, as long as they're as long as they're consistent. And specifically consistent with each other. Like here it's the fingers are rotating with the x-axis and the thumb is rotating with the z-axis, but that's okay because all 3 bones of the thumb require that, and all 3 bones of the fingers, they all use the same one as each other. Yeah, so as long as you can make a convincing fist, let's try making a thumbs up. It's an okay thumbs up. I would probably actually need to adjust the geometry if I wanted to make a better thumbs up at this point, because I think I made the thumb a little, like, pretty chunky. She's a mage. She doesn't have to throw a punch. She needs to be able to grab her staff. Yeah, it's true. So the thumb itself is, like, a little chunky, and it is pulling out the hand here quite a bit. So what I might do is, if I wanted to make sure I could do the thumbs up pose like I like to be able to do, select the armature, then the mesh, go back into weight painting mode, and then yeah, you can see, I think it's the fact that the hand is pulling on this part of meat of the thumb, but so is both the middle, the middle part of the thumb and the outer part of the thumb, the distal bone. Because for bones in the fingers, you have your proximal, middle, and distal, I believe. Little hand anatomy for you right there. So I'm just adjusting this to try and get the thumbs up looking a little bit nicer. I don't think it's going to look great because the thumb is quite low poly. It's a little chunky. So having it look a little chunky is part of it. And at this point, if I wanted to make better improvements to this thumb, I'd probably have to go into the mesh, maybe add a little bit more geometry. But that's pretty good for what we need. I'm going to give the hand a little bit more control over this part of the model as well. And sometimes you definitely want to tab back out and just like look at how it looks in like object mode, because how it looks in object mode is often very different. It's like here without the kind of wonky shading of the blue and the green and the red for the weight paint, doesn't look too bad. Yeah, that's an all right thumbs up. You know, yeah, I'd probably want to adjust the mesh so that the thumb cuts in a little bit more. There's maybe too much meat right here connecting the like middle, because it is more of a glove than it is fingers. And so there's kind of this cloth or webbing uh in between the middle bone of the thumb instead of the base. But for low poly, that's okay. Okay, so let's take a look in pose mode. Okay, yes, there's two other things that I want to do before we wrap up for today. So the main one being, I want to show this little bit of constraints. It's time to show some constraint. I know I've never done it before, but I promise there's a first time for everything. So what we can do is we can make it so that when we actually first we're going to need to do a little bit of adjustments on the weight paints, because we want the back of the leg to affect, yes, the booty bones. We want the back of the leg. Actually, maybe this is okay. Let me try adding the constraint first, then we'll see how it looks. So normally I add the booty bones later, so maybe it's actually okay if we do this first. So what we're going to do is in pose mode, we're going to go to this new little blue bone in pose mode called add bone constraint. And we're going to make sure we have the booty bone connected, or selected rather. We're going to add bone constraint, and then we're going to hit copy rotation. And you'll see it gives us this little window over here to the right. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the target to our armature. So you can use the little eyedrop tool and select the armature, and then the bone. And here we specifically want to select the upper leg bone. You'll notice the booty has collapsed in on itself. Don't worry, we're fixing that. So what you want to do to fix that is set the target and the owner here on the right from world space to local space. And now, whenever we rotate the booty, you'll see the leg, like the booty rotates with the leg. Now, what we don't need is it to copy 100% of the rotation kind of inverted like this. So what we do is we're going to, instead, we're only going to have it follow the x-axis. We don't need it to copy the y or the x. And we are going to have it invert the x. Okay, and this is the issue I'm having with it right now is happening because we've got it is we need to adjust the roll of this bone. Because see how the Z is to the left here and the X is facing back? I believe we're going to want the roll here to be negative 90. Set the Z on the same way. That way the two Z's are aligned. There we go. Okay. Yes, making sure that the axes of the leg and the butt are aligned. And then that whatever axis it is that's aligned, so in this case the Z axis, is the one that we're having it rotate, having it copy the rotation of. So now, whenever we move the leg, the booty bone moves with it. And that just helps give us some extra, like, room to, like, when we, let's say, rotate the leg way far back, it, like, the butt doesn't crush in on itself. It actually, the glutes stay gluten. You know, because we got that bread, that cake, and we need that gluten. And so, but you'll see it's still clipping quite a bit. So what we can do here is we can affect that bone constraint to have less than 100% influence. This one is again 100, and we could set that to be like 0.3, like 0.34. So it moves with the leg, but it's not completely copying the rotation. And that just helps you gets rid of a little bit of clipping. And you can, if you want, you know, you can have it like copy some of the X rotation and stuff as well. To have, especially on skirts, this kind of constraint is really helpful to avoid major clipping. So now that we've got this constraint set up, I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to set this bone roll to negative 90. Or actually, no, yeah, it actually should be at 90 because we want the Z's facing the same way. And then we're going to give a bone constraint to the other glute. Copy rotation. Set it up to target the upper right leg. Have it only work along the X and Z axis. And set the constraint to be 0.34 like we had on the other side. And you'll see it's already helped with the clipping of the skirt. Having one go forward, one go back like that has already helped immensely with the skirt clipping. Now we just have to deal with the fact that the leg wants to kind of disconnect from the body. She move! Yes, what's up, Euro? I hope you're doing well. We have added most of the rig and the weights, so we can do my age-old test, the Naruto run. Honestly, if a rig can do a Naruto run, yeah, her wig unfortunately did get snatches. No, it's because I always rig the hair last, and because it's usually just its own kind of beast, that I want to make sure that the base body works properly first. All right, and then the fun thing here, let's rotate the ears back. Bring the spine forward. See, this is when the rig's getting good enough that you can start playing, and it's like playing with action figures. And sometimes you'll just want to hide the armature. so you can see the whole thing. We got a little bit of clipping, but for low poly, honestly, you're gonna get, with low poly, you're always gonna get some clipping. This is pretty decent for like a base like rig and mesh here. The ears are going. So yeah, this is looking pretty good. I know it's the Naruto run, but it also reminds me of Sonic. I mean, hey, you know, it's a little animal who's got to go fast. Yeah, she's coming to life. This is the most fun part, right? Because like we have been working with this static character for a few weeks now. You know, doing only one stream a week. And all of a sudden we go from like it just being in this A-frame pose to suddenly it feels alive, you know? And it's like with having the character like all the hard work starts to feel like worth it, cuz you know, you can start taking like fun screenshots like this if you've got your OC that you're wanting to like tell stories or make things of, like all of a sudden you can start taking screenshots, you know? You can start photoshopping or tracing over. Once you've got this rig done, you can touch up the clipping if you need, if you don't feel like going deep into the weight paint process. You know, this takes you 90% of the way there. And we'll get to the next 10%. But like that is the thing to keep in mind. Then like where we are now is 90% of the way there. There's still the last 10% takes a while, but you have learned the bulk of everything at this point for making a low poly character. Seems like the type to skip instead of Naruto running. I can see that. So we're already doing pretty good, right? This is already looking real solid. So let's go ahead, and the funny thing here is I'm like, you know, we could spend a lot of time trying to finagle the you know, because this is low poly, we're never going to get the, and they're separate meshes, right? This is why a lot of people want legs and the body to be part of the same mesh, is it would help prevent clipping like this. I was just doing this, you know, as separate meshes as that's kind of like the Mega Man Legends look, is having them as separate meshes and then just letting them clip, because that's how they did it back in the day when they only had so much space to work with. So something that you can do here is, honestly, I could just go into object mode and I could just like bring these back along the y-axis very slightly. Change it off. Yeah, it's the low poly style, exactly. And I could just, why is it moving like that? Oh, let me get rid of the transform. Go into pose mode. Get rid of the clear transform. Go into object mode. And then just very lightly, just like bring the legs back just a little bit. And let's see how much that prevents the clipping already. So I mean, we're always going to see a little bit of leg there, but the little bit of leg doesn't bother me too much from most angles. It just kind of looks like the joint. And then from the front angle, it clips way less. So if we just bring those legs back just a little bit, it's not too bad. And that takes care of most of that clipping, actually. You know, we could spend a lot of time with them in the way that they were before, and trying to use like the glute bone and the glute bone in the top of the leg to weight paint. And like, I mean, I do think it's we can like, you know, paint the top of this vertex here a little bit, and that'll help connect it to the body, keep it close as that bone goes up. But it's not gonna keep it flush, because we just don't have enough geometry to do that, because of the low poly style. But it does keep it closer, right? And then same thing with here. We can use like the back. We can assign like the booty to these vertices painted on. Paint on that booty. And then use the blur just to like keep it so it's not clipping. The objects aren't clipping into itself. Especially for low poly, that's the main thing I would recommend is just like do enough weight painting that like even in the extreme poses, the objects aren't like clipping through themselves, right? Like if this bit of the leg was then clipping through this bit of the boot, I would try and make sure I got rid of that. Because that will affect like shading engines and stuff. But for this, those legs are looking okay. And honestly, these bends, like this internal clip, again, one that you're just not gonna uh get rid of completely in a low poly style. That's a thing that with way more geometry you could affect like at a greater degree to have it bend in on itself and create like a compression. But that's not an effect that you get with like the low poly thing, just because the lack of geometry kind of prevents that from being a like a thing that we can do. You just can't bend what's not there, you know? Like think of additional geometry, higher poly, as all of those being potential pivot points and kind of almost like going from like we're at hard plastic right now, and if you had like a soft plastic or almost more like clay like material, that's what like a higher poly thing is. Higher poly is closer to clay, whereas bits bend in or fold up on each other, they've got more points um to like tweak each other, to bend in or press out with one another. But certain things like this, I want to make sure that the boot is all totally assigned to the upper leg. And sometimes you just got to make sure you're hiding the body. You know, I want to make sure that the upper leg is assigned to the upper leg. And then it's controlling it enough. So now we're way under the character. Got all turned around. But I typically think that kind of thing looks better anyway. And actually, maybe, okay, so yeah, see, now the thing that's happening with this bit of lip here is the booty bone controls the rest of the leg, but not that bit. So that's why it's pulling away from the rest of the body. So if you ever run into it where you're like, wait, why is this bit suddenly pulling away? It's probably because an area lost influence over it. And now either one thing that shouldn't have influence is like redder than it should be, or one area that did have influence lost it from like blurring or painting. And that will sometimes break things just a little bit. So I also want to make sure I get rid of like the upper leg shouldn't have control over the calf. So going through and fixing God's mistakes with that, which this is why I prefer to do like not auto paint. I prefer to work off of empty shapes, but empty shapes, you know, it takes more work initially, but there's less guesswork. There's less like kind of investigative work where you're like, why is this happening? Because you know exactly, theoretically, you know exactly why you did everything that you did. Whereas sometimes with starting with the automatic weights like we did for this, you have to kind of guess at what bone is causing the issue that you have. And so a lot of people don't like that if they feel like they've got their own workflow really mapped out for themselves. Now I'm just going through, adjusting the toes. The arms and the shoulders actually auto painted really nice, luckily, so we don't really have to tweak those at all. Okay, yeah, this is bending way nicer now. And there is a little bit of compression in the back, obviously, once you go like full, like knee in, it breaks a little bit. That was always bound to happen with low poly. But as long as you, I mean, already being able to do something like that, pretty good. Kind of tweak as you go. Add influence, reduce it wherever you see fit. And every model is going to be a little bit different, of course. Gonna clear the transforms. And now I'm going to talk about hair for just a little bit before we wrap things up for today. So we've been leaving hair off till the end. So for everything. So now we've got everything, but we need the hair still, because if you look while we pose, yeah, she would look like she was skipping for sure. So if we enter pose mode, you'll see, that's not what we want. But we also don't want the head to be controlling every bit. I mean, if we didn't want any jiggle physics or any like kind of follow through with the hair, maybe that would be fine. But I want the hair to have a little bit of bounce and sway to it. And so what we're going to do is we're not going to create a second armature. You can only have one armature assigned to a mesh, as far as I know. Maybe you can do multiple. But as far as I know, VTubing only supports a single armature to a mesh. You might be able to do multiple, but I've never done that. I would recommend against it. So we're going to Shift D and duplicate the head once again. And we're going to shrink this down. Down, I said, not bigger. And I'm going to create one that is, let's go into the side view. We're going to basically do what we did for the rest of the body, but we're just adding bones to the individual bangs of the hair. And then we'll treat the back more like a single mass. So some exact same way that we did things for like the arms, we're just going to create this initial root bone. And we're going to then create a extrusion. Hair bones connected to the head bone, of course, just like the eye bones. And I always, for extremities, I always like to have the little dangly bit, the tail, and right after the mesh. And you're going to want to hit that from a couple different angles. So it starts getting a little busy. And if you ever want, you can hide bits of armature, just like you can hide mesh by selecting what you want to hide and hit H. So that way it's not too busy. in your view screen. And you generally want the points all around where you want them to bend, right? Like that's where you want the bones to begin and end. So, I mean, now we've got that. Let me unhide the head actually, because I want to make sure that this is parented to the head bone properly. So now I'm going to duplicate this hair bone again. What we can do is we'll, instead of head 001, we'll name this like bang 001, because we unfortunately can't do the symmetrize with this because it is not a symmetrical hairpiece. So I'm going to back up this bang, and what we're actually going to do is this is going to be the root of the hair. So just like hair has roots, so does this model in Blender. So we are going to grab this bang one and parent it to, we're going to name this bang root. That'll be important for jiggle physics later, is knowing exactly what bone we want to be the bang bone. You heard me. What bone we want to be the bang bone. So let's grab this bang 01, grab bang root, make bang root the parent of the bang bone. And now we're just adding more and more bones, right? So, oops, I don't mean to duplicate both of them, just the root. Cool guy mode. We're talking all about the bang bone in the bone zone. So now we're just like rotating, moving. And then extruding the next bone, trying to line it up generally with how we want it. And these we'll need the same thing as what's going on in the fingers, where we had the roll all set, where it's like, oh, all the z-axis is like rotated the same way. Yes, it is okay if not all the armature is symmetrized. 100%. Oftentimes it won't be because of the hair. The reason we kept it symmetrized until the end was so that we could then just hit the symmetrize button and flip all the bones, so we didn't have to make all the bones twice. We also did it so that when we did all the weight painting while it was still symmetrical, so all the weight painting would just flip directly over onto the other side as well. We could keep the weight paintings symmetrized as well, so we just had to weight one ear, one side of the face, one arm, one leg, instead of having to weight paint, do twice the amount of work, essentially. Which is why I kept the hair until the end. So, just grabbing these. Let's see. Duplicate. Oop, not that. Grabbed the wrong thing. Duplicate bang 01, rotate it over. Now I'm gonna just extrude out to make this bang super quick. Okay. And now, just looking at it, I'm gonna try and get all the rolls set up. So I mean, they're all kind of going along the x-axis with the z pointed down. So that's actually probably fine. This is the one we want to tweak here. The roll here is off. So I'm making sure that the x is kind of obeying the horizontal line of the hair, and the z is pointing in towards the face. And making sure that all of them behave like that is going to be really helpful for jiggle physics, making sure that they all just rotate and transform properly. So I could do all of the hair first, but I want to show you. So now that we've got this like amount of the rig done, let me go ahead and hide some of the other bones that are in the way. Now that we've got these bangs done, we can, oh, that only hides it in edit mode. It doesn't change it for pose mode. What we'll do is we'll make sure that we have the bones that we want selected. And then we'll edit or enter object mode. And with the bones that we wanted selected, and then shift selecting the mesh. Oh no, other way around. Oh, right. It's because we haven't actually added the armature yet to the hair. Okay. So control or select the hair. Sorry, that's the problem with doing this while sick is I've been a little bit more scrambled than lately. Select the hair and then select with shift, select the rig as well. Because we've already added the rig to all of the other bits of the mesh. We need to add the rig to the hair as well. You can hit Control P. And then this one I'm going to do with empty groups because automatic weights is going to fuck this shit right up. So because the hair is not going to know what to do with this info. With like all of these extra bones around and stuff, it would be a mess. So what we'll do is now we'll select the rig and then the mesh. We'll hit Control T, weight paint. And now you'll see we've got this beautiful empty blue canvas. So I am going to just honestly paint the whole thing, or not the whole thing. I'm going to paint the mushroom. Maybe we want to end up adding jiggle physics to the mushroom too. That'd be cute, actually, now that I think about it. So before I do that, because maybe I'll actually end up making a bone for that. Now with these bones selected, I can just paint it in manually because automatic weight painting here would get so messed up with all the face bones, the ear bones and stuff. It'd become an absolute mess. So starting with a fairly low weight of like half, I'll use Alt-click to select a bone and then paint on to the bang. And actually, I'll probably get rid of the head here to make sure I'm going under and connecting it all there as well. You can use the bracket keys to change the radius as a hotkey, like a brush scale size hotkey, as many 2D art programs have. How did I make sure the new hair bones were connected to the armature? I built the new hair bones in the armature. Like in the edit mode of the armature, is where I first added the new hair bones. It was never a second separate armature. I just went back into the pre-existing armature that we had parented and added the hair bones. And then I went out and using hitting I went out to object mode and then chose the mesh, then the armature, hit Control P, and chose armature deform with empty groups. So now we've got this basic extra weight paint in here, and obviously the mushroom. I'll need to make sure that that's not getting painted with this, but the bangs can start to deform with that as we paint them in. And you'll see at least the base here that is being painted on with weights will move along with the head as well because of the way that the hair root is parented. Yeah, honestly, the bangs are just exactly like fingers again, especially for low poly like this. Is the bangs, like if we go back in and rotate them along the X like we did before, they curl exactly like a finger would. So they take a bit of mushroom along with them. I definitely accidentally assigned part of a weight somewhere to the mushroom, and I don't know how or where that happened. But you can tell by the way that this is reacting. It's pulling, it's got weight assigned to the mushroom. Oh, there we go. It was invisible to the naked eye, but apparently had enough because nothing else had any ownership over the mushroom. It was enough to pull it forward. So yeah, now I would just go forward, and before I rig or weight paint all of the bangs, I would add a rig to the rest of the bangs. I would add a rig to the mushroom, or like specifically, I would add bones. It's using the same rig. I would make these adjustments. Um, so I would go into the rigs edit mode, and from the hair root, I would make even directly from there, I would just extract up. I would extract up maybe 2 bones so that the mushroom could have a little bit of wiggle, and then 1 more up at the top of the mushroom for the mushroom cap, and then I could, that way we could give even the mushroom a little bit of wiggle. And what I would recommend is, if you want this to have jiggle physics, what you're rigging here, keep it lower than like 37 to 40 bones with jiggle physics. So we've already got 6 in the ears, and now we've got 9, 12, 15, 18. So we could get like maybe 3 more in this side. We get 21. We get 3 more on this side. That brings us to like 24. And then maybe we do like 3, 3, 3 on the big ones in the back, and then treat the hair underneath that as all one big motion. Because you want to avoid adding way too many bones, especially for something like VR chat or VTubing, because that's just going to be like real time rendering, and so it's heavier on the GPU to do that. And a lot of people, for certain applications, I know for like VR chat, not that it's not a thing I do, but I've seen that VR chat documentation specifically recommends you to limit yourself to 38 bones or fewer with jiggle physics, because otherwise it's just like too hard on other people's GPUs and CPUs, and it will like auto cull the jiggle physics at a certain point, and so people won't even see all the extra jiggle physics that you have in things like VR chat if you've got too much. If you've got like wings and a tail and ears and everything, like and you're like, because it's just like it's hogging up the resources essentially. So limit it where you can, and especially because we're working in a low poly style, it doesn't make that much sense to go overboard with jiggle physics anyway, because there's just not enough geometry to support it. We will get like a fun amount here, but I'm going to wrap it up here for today. We've seen how to build a base mesh, how to use vertex groups, how to adjust weight paints and add bone constraints, and then add additional bones and add them in and make sure that they're affecting the mesh as well. So we've covered a lot of ground. The rest of the hair is basically just treating it exactly like the bangs and exactly like the fingers that I've shown already. So it's just going to be a lot more like tedious work of getting that stuff to work properly. I'll do another quick screen record when I'm doing that stuff off stream, and then just throw it in at a time lapse at the end, like I did with the UV paint and texture wrapping. Still, I need to actually edit that and put that up on YouTube, but it does exist. So I'll be getting to that actually pretty soon. Yeah, thank you all for joining me on apparently my affiliate anniversary. I had no idea that was going to be happening today, but that's fun. I want to do actually something for my like Friday versary. I think that's in March, so maybe we'll look at doing like a like chat game night sometime. Hey, thank you so much to Pendleton. I'm just wrapping up right now, but we've made really good progress on all of this stuff. I think it's coming along really well. And it's always so fun at this point just to be able to like really start messing around with the character, doing running poses and stuff, like, and all sorts of things that you can do. Yeah. I hope when you go back, there is followable, like it feels followable. I do, and if it doesn't, if anybody ever has any questions, please feel free to reach out on the Discord. You can reach out in the art and hobby zone with Blender questions. We've got some other people who are big into Blender, so that's always they're a helpful resource as well. If I don't have the answer to a question, they might. Yeah, look at this. It's all coming together. I mean, we still very much need to do the hair rigging, but that's really just tedious off-stream time. And then, so next week we will be doing the or the blend keys. I always call them shape keys. Let me see what do they call it in Blender, actually. They might call it shape keys. Yeah, shape keys. Okay, here in the bottom right below vertex groups. That's why I wanted to do a little introduction to vertex groups, is they're helpful for they're very helpful for weight painting, but they're also extremely helpful for doing like facial animation and stuff. And so that is how we will set up facial animation next time for lip sync and eye tracking stuff. That'll be next time, and we'll get into that. That'll take most of that stream because it's a pretty long one. I'll teach the basics, and then maybe actually if we get through the basics, then we will get into how to import that stuff into Unity.